Well, hello, class, and believe it or not, we have entered into Unit 6. That, to me, is kind of boggles my mind that we are already this far into the semester. And I have to say, I have you have I have been so impressed by your work. So thank you for all that you have done. It has been fun to watch as you discover new things and you learn and you interact. It was so great to see some of these kind of just really simple conversations, even last week occur, but really kind of talking through how you view things and how you think about things and how it helps what you're saying and what others are saying to kind of think about things a bit differently. So that's been really, frankly, it's been very encouraging for me to see. So thanks for that. It's just been fun to watch as you kind of have what I guess I would call these moments of kind of discovery or these aha moments, if you will. So just some great work there. So thanks for your commitment to doing all of that. So last week was a lot of great content. You shared some fantastic artifacts that I think I'm definitely going to be pulling from to use in future classes. So I hope that that was kind of an enjoyable, I guess, in some ways, everything's kind of a scavenger hunt, but you kind of got to do some scavenger hunting as you went out and found some content. And then, of course, you read some great chapters and you had some case studies, and it's just been wonderful to read your take on how you think you would respond to certain cases. And obviously these case studies are preparation for what's to come in the future. As you think about how would I work with certain clients, you may very well have these encounters or circumstances when you're working with clients in the future. I remember this was probably, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I was talking with Vicki Ewing, our department chair, and she was, and actually from the beginning, she had told me that her students, all of you, MFT students, just really enjoy case studies, vignettes, because it gives you a chance to kind of role play what it would look like potentially to do the work that we're talking about and to practice it. And so, if we were in a face-to-face class, what we would do is every week we would meet. I would give you case studies and I would have you team up with people in the class, and you would literally in front of the class, you would walk through a scenario. This is what we would, again, if we were face to face, what we would do. So, I'd give you a situation, you would respond to, Melissa and her case, and one person would be the client, and one person would um, be the counselor. So when I was thinking about, I went to a training with a colleague at APU, and she was doing a training on executive coaching. And there's a lot of actually similarities between what an executive coach may do and what a career counselor may do, what a career coach may do. And we actually spent a considerable amount of time watching or kind of listening in, if you will, to this professional certified coach basically role playing with clients, with fake clients. So they brought real scenarios and then they went back and forth. And that was the best way for us to learn because we got to see them do this work. I think that one of the things that you think about is, when you see good counseling, and you likely know when you see bad counseling or counseling that could use improvement. And what we're doing throughout this process is getting better, right? You're working towards getting better. So I think, I read a great book called The Dangerous Act of Loving Your Neighbor by Dr. Mark Laberton. And toward the beginning of the book, I think in the foreword or, maybe in the preface or something, I can't remember exactly where it is, not yet in the chapters. One of the things that he says is, I'm not yet where I want to be, but I'm not where I once was. And I think that as we consider where we are kind of on the spectrum of preparation for going out into to doing this work outside of the school setting, I think, and I'm going to make an assumption and kind of put some words in your mouth, but I think it's fair to say if we were to go around, I think we could all agree, much like I think we would say the same thing, not just about our work and our schooling, but life in general. We're not yet where we want to be, right? But we're not where we once were. So, and I think that's fair to say that, I may want to, go on and do a doctorate at some point. You may want to complete your master's degree because obviously you are in a graduate master's program right now. But But even the fact that we are here today on Wednesday, uh, we're not where we want to be, because maybe we want to be on Saturday, so the weekend, right? But we're not where we once were, so we're not on Tuesday anymore. Okay, so you can kind of think about it in that context. So we're always working towards something. So what is it that we're working towards? We're not quite there yet because we're working toward that. And then once we get there, we're going to work towards something else. But all the things that came before us, basically the reality is that we're not where we once were, and that's a good thing, because that what that does is that shows we are making progress in life. Correct? I think so. So yeah, great work last week. Great work so far through these first, I guess, 5 units. So very good work there. We are entering, as I mentioned, into Unit 6. If you look at the syllabus, what you'll notice in there is you'll see that I broke Unit 7 up into Unit 7.1 and Unit 7.2. So instead of having the traditional 2 weeks to complete Unit 7, you will have 3 weeks, because in the middle of that is Thanksgiving break, okay? And this week, or this year, you may or may not have been aware of this, but the institution, University at Large, APU, we are actually taking the entire week of Thanksgiving off for vacation. So you obviously are free to work on your course content during that week, but we're not doing anything with that. So I'll talk more about kind of the expected timelines and everything for that. But just as you think ahead, just kind of looking at in the front windshield, where we're headed, that's something important to keep in mind. So you actually have 3 weeks in Unit 7, okay? Okay, so I want to talk about a couple of other things, and then I'm going to do a separate video this weekend on the vocation and calling response paper. There's, if you look into the assignments section, you will notice that there's a video in there. It's an older video. The content is still very relevant, but you're more than welcome to watch that. But I think I want to do an updated one for you, specifically to this semester, and kind of talk about why we're doing this, not just the assignment, what is expected of you, but why we're doing the assignment, I should say. I've been having several conversations with colleagues around campus about bringing vocation and calling into the discussion around ideas of career development theories and techniques. And it's been very encouraging as we've gone through those things, and that's what I want to talk more about. So stay tuned. Probably Sunday night I'll post that video, as well as I will spend some time responding to some of your questions that you've had over the last unit or so that have been some really thoughtful questions on the 3-2-1s. Okay, so look for that. Probably Sunday is what I'm thinking. All right. I was talking with a friend this morning. Actually, teaches in the Doctor of Psychology program, the PsyD program, and mentioned something that you're probably more aware of than I am, given that you are studying. You are living in. I live and breathe vocation and calling and career, and you live and breathe clinical psychology. So one of the things that he was mentioning as we talked about the work that I'm doing in this class and just in career development, vocation, and calling related content in general, is he said that there's some great connections as I kind of walked him through the process that I did with you at the beginning of the semester, and we talked about the family that was all struggling given their the loss of the job from their father. And he mentioned interpersonal psychotherapy for depression, and kind of how there's these kind of interconnectedness, and how it throws off kind of our kind of normalcy, right? So and the description here, the basic premise is when you think about interpersonal psychotherapy for depression, the premise of this is depression often follows changes in one's interpersonal environment. Okay, so struggle with a significant other, divorce, loss of a loved one, maybe death, job loss. And if you remember the book that we looked at in well-being, and again, we've got to question this a little bit, but I think there is some truth that dealing with the loss of a spouse can oftentimes, or the loss of a job can oftentimes be more challenging than dealing with the loss of a spouse. Now, for some, that may not be believable, but for others, I think that 27-year career in a marriage of 27 years, I think that sometimes it's neck and neck, because we probably spend more time in a job than we do with a spouse. And so there's some challenges that come with that, and this is really disrupting normalcy. So once depressed, symptoms can lead to compromised interpersonal functioning, which can precipitate continued stressful events. The goal in therapy is to address both the stressful life events and improved social support. So I thought I would just mention that. Again, this may have been on your radar, but if you think about the connections between career development theories and techniques and clinical psychology, this is, I think, one that's worth considering. As is, and we'll get into this more later in the semester, narrative therapy. So these are some things that you may already, again, be aware of or be utilizing in your practice and your work. But I think as we think about how does what we're doing in career connect to clinical psych, these are some very specific kind of correlative connections that we need to look at and consider as we think about the bigger picture. Okay, so things to think about for either tomorrow or way down the road. All right, so where are we headed this week? We are headed into a couple different directions. You are going to be reading Anderson Van Heet two chapters, 10 and 11, and then Liptak chapter 6. Okay, you have your Unit 6 forum discussion, case study number 8, and then your vocation and call and response paper is due by midnight the last Sunday of this unit, which is not for a while here. We're looking at November 12th. So you've got some good amount of time to complete that assignment. All right. So the forums, we're going to spend time looking at testing and kind of managing the career IT component. Okay, so what do online assessments look like? How does that work with interpretation and feedback? How does the face-to-face differ from an online or a teleconferencing? So some things with that. There are some canned computer-based interpretations. Are they appropriate or inappropriate? When are they appropriate, and so forth. And then we're going to talk about the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which one of the great things that comes with the completion of the marriage and family therapy degree, so an MA in clinical psychology, is through CPP Incorporated. So it used to stand for Consulting Psychology Press Incorporated, now just CPP. You can actually, and I may have mentioned this beforehand, be deemed educationally eligible to administer the Myers-Briggs type indicator, to administer and to interpret. Okay, so the other one you can administer and interpret by way of educational eligibility is the strong interest inventory. So there's excuse me, there's a webinar that you don't have to listen to, but if you want to, I think that it's worth your while. It's Jane Gruder, I think is her name. She's now deceased, but she is just a giant in the world and work of Myers-Briggs and strong interest inventory. Worked with CPP or for CPP for a while, and then went on her own and worked with CPP. She does this webinar, so it's worth a listen. It is 90 minutes long, but it's good content if you have time, if you're driving or something like that and want to check it out. There's also a video, a TED Talk by Susan Cain, which if you have not read the book Quiet or seen this TED Talk, it is a great TED Talk about introverts and how they survive in a world that won't stop talking. Amazing book and just a great TED Talk. If you're interested in learning your MBTI and haven't done that yet or want to kind of take a refresher, I've given you a link at the bottom of the first part of this forum. You can take a free version. If you want to do the full paid version, you can go to the Career Services office here at APU. And then there's some questions on cyber counseling, some additional articles to read, and then, of course, any other thoughts or questions or comments that you would like to make. I would love to hear from you as well. Okay, so again, you have case study number 8, and then your vocation and calling paper is due at the end of this unit. So a lot to do, a lot of papers to write, so be thinking about kind of how you want to frame things. If you've not yet completed your reading of your choice of your book choice, obviously get that done. If you're anything like me, I'll probably complete my reading by the end of this week and then start the paper next week and get it done by Sunday at midnight. And then the same thing goes with all papers. Proofread, 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 and then proofread 7 more times. So great work. If I can be of help in any way, please let me know. I'm headed out of town for work tomorrow, but I will have access to email. I'll be in Sakai responding to questions and all of that, whatever you may have. But yeah, happy to respond. And again, I just want to make it known. I told my undergrad students today, and I want to tell my grad students today as well. I am here to support you in any way that I possibly can. So let me know how that is if I can be of service. All right. Have a great week, or I guess unit, and we'll see you online.